My name is Eric Whitacre. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm the composer of this piece, Deep Field, but by no means am I the only person involved in this project. The people who have made it are legion. Many of them are here tonight. Before we show the film, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to spend about 15 minutes or so and just take you through the inspiration for the piece itself and some of the moving parts that you're about to see. I've been a space nerd my whole life. I grew up in northern Nevada, where the stars are dark, or the stars are many at night and the skies are dark. And I had my first telescope at 10, and I would spend night after night after night staring up into the skies. I actually thought that I would be an astrophysicist until I realized I knew nothing about math and never would. But it's always been a great and deep love of mine. And so I've followed NASA and their exploits since I can remember. And in 1990, you'll remember that's when they launched the Hubble telescope. And this was after years and years of fanfare. So many years that I could remember as a child back in the 70s, they were already talking about this thing. And they'd spent billions of dollars on it. It was hailed at the time that we would see images further than we'd ever seen before, clearer than we'd ever seen before. And when it was launched to great fanfare, they began sending images back to Earth. There's the Hubble. And many of you will remember that when those first images came back, they were blurry. It turns out there was a spherical aberration, just a tiny, tiny aberration on the mirror itself. And Congress did what they always do. They called for the dissolution of NASA. Nothing changes. The press had a field day with it. They called it a boondoggle. And NASA did what they always do, which is they rolled up their sleeves and got to work. And they sent several shuttle missions up to do a hardware fix on the Hubble, and then on the ground they did all kinds of software fixes, and essentially they put a contact lens on the thing. This is Dr. John Grunsfeld, who I've had the great pleasure of meeting, spending some time with. He led some of the shuttle missions up to repair the Hubble. John was going to be here tonight, and he had a terrible bicycle accident just a week and a half ago. He's fine now. He sends his regrets that he can't be here, but we really had to laugh that, you know, spacewalk, no problem at all. A bicycle took him out. Anyway, once they had repaired the Hubble telescope, it started sending back these images, these breathtaking images. This is galaxy M101, the Orion Nebula, the Sombrero Galaxy. And in 1995, Bob Williams, who was then the director of the Hubble project, pointed the Hubble telescope at a completely black area of the sky. This was a controversial move at the time. It was a lot of time that he was asking for from this very valuable and sought-after instrument. And to Earthbound telescopes, where they pointed the telescope, there was literally nothing there. And the size of the sky that he was looking at is 1/24 millionth of the sky. I've heard it best described as holding a penny in your hand at arm's length and looking through Lincoln's eye. That's the sliver of sky that they were looking at. And they kept the exposures open for about 10 days worth of exposures, 385 separate exposures. And when the image came back and was processed, it looked like this, the deep field image. In the photograph, we see over 3,000 objects, almost every one of them a galaxy. Not a local star, but a galaxy. Some of them several million light years from us, some of them 10, 11, 12 billion light years from Earth. Each one of those galaxies, of course, represents hundreds of billions, if not trillions of stars. And this is the tiniest sliver of the universe. And so we saw for the first time the impossible magnitude of our universe and how truly, truly small we are in it. So that was my inspiration even back then, and forever I've wanted to write a piece about deep field. And 4 years ago I was commissioned by the Minnesota Orchestra, and I thought, all right, finally, this is what I'm going to do. I'll write this piece, deep field. And then comes the question, how do you write a piece of music that can do justice to that, right? So I start like this. This is a picture that my son made for me. This is, he's 13 now, so he was 5. We were living in London at the time. We were trapped inside on a rainy Saturday afternoon. And he wrote my name, Eric, and then these pictures around the outside. And so I asked him, his name is Esh. I said, Esh, what do the pictures mean? And he said, well, that's a rainbow skull and crossbones at the top. There's a giant pyramid of cheese. This is rain falling on Zeus, who is shooting thunderbolts down on a snake wearing pants. And then finally around the corner, this is an alien baby playing maracas and hot dogs. And you know, he said this all without any sense of irony. Like, yeah, that is a snake wearing pants. That's what I meant to draw. And I loved the fearlessness with which he wrote, and really just all he's doing is exploring and learning. I did what every parent does. I gave him a big hug. I put the picture up on the refrigerator. I rewarded him for this. And it made me think that there's something in it for me as well. So I've started to do the same thing. So now what I do is I sit down at a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and I just start sketching. No judgment. Whatever comes into my mind. This is for a piece that I've written called Equus, which means horse in Latin, simply. And I started by drawing this Death Star Pokemon ball thing in the middle here. And just words that I wanted the piece to be strong and exciting and clean and virtuosic and momentum. And I would play number games every time my hand would get tired. I'd play with the Fibonacci sequence or just keep moving, moving, moving. And then finally, the first melody that popped into my head, the very top left-hand corner, I just wrote it down. I didn't care if it sounded dumb, if I couldn't sing it, didn't matter. I wrote it down. I've had the chance now to work with the film composer Hans Zimmer on a couple of projects, and Hans has this great saying, which is, why go with your fifth bad idea when you can go with your first bad idea? So this is a kind of thing that I do, these what I call the emotional architecture of a piece. And so I did the same thing when I sat down to write Deep Field. So with Deep Field, I knew that I wanted it to start this staticky, mud, low strings, like in Debussy's La Mer. I just wrote that down, and that they would build and then terrace, build, terrace, build, terrace, and then it comes into focus. And my basic idea is that the music would be out of focus, just like the Hubble telescope, flirt with being in focus, so it'd be kind of musically smeared, almost in focus, then smear again, then almost in focus, and then finally when we see the Deep Field image, the orchestra comes into this magnificent moment of clarity, and then it diffuses, it evaporates down. And as I was doing that, then I realized I need a theme. I need what I call a golden brick that has all the DNA for the big piece embedded into just a few notes. And so I sketched out this. And basically, it's NASA's story, building the telescope. So we start with a failure motive, da, 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 falling, then aspirational, bum, bum, bum. So still reaching and falling. Then the struggle, da, da, dum, bum, finally achieving it, and then catharsis. The same three notes at the beginning, but now we've achieved it. Bum, bum, bum. So it's that simple. And then the blue line there is the demarcation of the golden mean. The entire piece is based on the Fibonacci sequence, on the smallest level and on the biggest level. And then you'll see the shapes are exactly the same. So that at the micro level and the entire piece itself, they have the same basic shape. I don't expect any of you to hear this while we're listening to it, but these are kind of the nuts and bolts in making it. Once we launched the piece, and this is just a small side note, this is on the website now, and we've really embraced this idea of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and how those things can work together. We've got all kinds of initiatives for education on the site. This is an example of one where students or lifelong learners can come to the site and earn badges by learning different things about all of these different disciplines. Once they earn all the badges, then they get a kind of a nice big badge and a reward. All of these sorts of things. Now, I knew that at the end of the piece, what I wanted was this magical moment, that we would travel to the furthest reaches of the known universe. We'd have this moment of clarity, see this deep field image, and then bring it back to what is the human lesson in all of this. And to do that, I knew that I wanted voices. I'm primarily a choral composer. I think my first and greatest love is the human voice. And for years, I've been working on this virtual choir project. I'll show you just a little bit about that now. So back in, I guess this was 2010, a young woman named Britlin Losey, only 17 at the time, living in Long Island, New York, uploaded a fan video to me on YouTube, not knowing me, just hoping somehow it would find me, like an electronic message in a bottle. And it did.
Hi, Mr. Eric Whitacre. My name is Britlin Losey, and this is a video that I'd like to make for you. Here's me singing Sleep. I'm you know.
I thought Britlin's video was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. You know, her voice is just so pure and clear, and her intention is so pure and clear. And I found it also incredibly intimate, that you could see into her room behind her, her face close up. And I had this very simple idea at the time, which was, if you could somehow get 25 people to do what Britlin is doing, to sing their part, soprano, alto, tenor, or bass, wherever they were, sitting in a dorm room or their living room or their kitchen, anywhere in the world, as long as they were singing at the same speed and in the same key, if they would just upload their videos of their single parts, and I just started all the videos at the same time, this choir would unfold, this virtual choir. That was my basic idea. The first problem I had was, how do you get everybody to sing at the same tempo? So what I did is I uploaded this video of myself conducting a piece that I'd written called Lux Aurumque. Again, Latin, simply means light and gold. And you can see that there's no sound, or you can hear that there's no sound, because there's no choir yet. So each person would sit in front of their computer screen with their sheet music and sing their part following my gestures like this. I can tell you that in the studio that day, the camera people thought I was out of my mind. And I really didn't know if people would upload videos or not. So I posted this on my website and Facebook at the time, which was still relatively new, and said, okay, singers, here's what we're going to try. Please download the sheet music, come to the website, and let's give this a go. And lo and behold, singers began to upload their videos. This is Cheryl Ang from Singapore. This is Evangelina Etienne from Massachusetts. Stephen Hansen from Sweden. And Jamal Walker from Texas. There's even a short soprano solo at the beginning of Lux Aurumque, and so I held auditions in a way. I think about 30 sopranos uploaded their videos, and I chose Melody Myers from Tennessee. Completely effortless. I don't know if you can read the top comment, but it says, "You melt my face off." All told, with that first virtual choir project, we had 185 singers from 12 different countries upload their videos. And a young man named Scott Haynes at the time stitched them all together, spent about 3 months doing it. And the biggest challenge for him was cleaning up the sound. You can hear in some of the videos that I played for you, you can hear air conditioning in the background, kind of that hiss, computer hiss. That stuff is relatively easy to get out of the mix. But in some of the videos, we had crickets or an ambulance, or we had one video where you could hear a mother yelling off screen, "What are you doing in there?" So he got it all cleaned up, and in, I believe it was the spring of 2010, we uploaded to YouTube Virtual Choir 1.0 Lux Aurumque. And forgive me, I'll stop it there just in the interest of time. The video went viral. We really thought only choir geeks would be interested in it, but it got picked up by the international news media. I did some interviews, and suddenly singers from around the world were saying, when is the next virtual choir? How can I be a part of this thing? Please believe me when I never thought there would be another virtual choir. And so we launched a year later Virtual Choir 2.0, this time with another piece that I'd written called Sleep. This time, 2,052 singers from 57 different countries. The next year, more and more singers coming in. How do we do this? How do we be a part of this? People from all over the earth. So we launched Virtual Choir 3.0, Water Night. 3,746 singers from 73 countries. So, as I began to imagine the final form for Deep Field, where there's this massive climax, this moment of clarity, the diffusion that comes down, and then this choir that appears, I thought, what better choir than the virtual choir? And so for the past 6 months, we've been inviting singers from all over the world to join. So what you'll hear at the end of the film now is over 8,000 singers from 120 countries, a real earth choir, if you will. It's probably enough of me talking now. Shall we see the film? Good. Thank you so much. Please enjoy.